bit underground on the fringes, but then eventually they become mainstream. So, of course, if my ideas did become mainstream, I would not behave like those who are in the currently dominant position, where they try to exclude all the alternative ideas. For example, if my ideas about the origin of the human species were dominant in the world of science, then in the textbooks, if there were still some scientists who supported the Darwinian theory of evolution, I would say, okay, give them some pages in the textbooks to explain their ideas. Sure. I wouldn't be behaving as they are now, excluding all the alternative ideas from the education system.
Can you explain to us who the Hobbit is that some archaeologists talk about and why the Hobbit is relevant?
That has to do with some discoveries that were made on Flores Island in Indonesia. There, some archaeologists found the bones of a little ape-man-like creature. And it's interesting. If they just said, hey, we found some little bones of some little creature and just gave a Latin species name for it, it wouldn't get any headlines. It wouldn't attract any public attention. So scientists have become good at publicity. They know that the best way to get attention for any fossil ape-man discovery that they make is to give it some kind of name that will attract the public's attention. For example, the first discovery of Australopithecus that was made by Donald Johanson in Ethiopia in the 1970s, it wouldn't have attracted any public attention, really, except that he called it Lucy. And he said, yes, we were listening to the Beatles song Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and therefore when we found this little fossil Australopithecus...
They marketed it, basically.
Yeah, they marketed it. So, it's the same with this other discovery. Because of the popularity of the movie Lord of the Rings and all of that was about the same time as this discovery. The scientists just decided to call it, the Hobbit. So it's just part of the whole marketing apparatus that goes into archaeology and many fields of science. It's like a good marketing technique. And this little ape man, or some scientists think it was a pygmy human being with a disease that malformed its bones. So there's a big debate going on about that. This creature is about 30,000 years old, according to the archaeologists, but it was found in a place where they had also discovered stone tools about 800,000 years old. That in itself is kind of astonishing, because most archaeologists have a hard time accepting that human beings capable of making those tools existed 800,000 years ago in Indonesia. So they proposed, well, it must have been some ape man who made those stone tools. And the ape man that existed at that time in that part of the world was called Homo erectus. It was existing about 800,000 years ago. And then it became a problem to explain how that ape man got to Flores Island. So they proposed, well, he made a boat and sailed there. But nobody ever thought these ape men were intelligent enough to do that. But they were just making this up, I believe, in order to explain the stone tools on Flores Island. But I think there's another explanation, because there is evidence that there were human beings like us, intelligent human beings just like us, who were present in Southeast Asia 800,000 years ago. And I would say it was them who made the sea crossing to Flores Island and left the stone tools there. And as far as this little hobbit, I think that is probably a representative of some kind of Bigfoot creature, but I guess you have to call it Littlefoot because the creature is so small that was existing at that time in Indonesia. And there are reports even today of living ape men being seen in that part of the world, in Sumatra and Borneo and places like that. The natives call these creatures Siddhapas. So I think what you've got there, what that hobbit is, it's not a human ancestor. It's just one of these Sasquatch-type creatures that exist in various parts of the world. And human beings like us were also there in ancient times. Just like today, we're coexisting with different kinds of apes and monkeys and things like that on this planet. In the past, we were also coexisting with them.
How do you keep your sense of poise and not get into the anger when the stuff is suppressed? Is it the meditation that you do?
Well, yes. I look at my work as part of my yoga, part of my meditation, and one of the principles of yoga and meditation is to control the mind, be even-minded about things. So I really try to do that, to be equal in honor or dishonor, victory or defeat. This is one of the principles. And you can also see this in modern sports. There's some athletes who are good sports. Whether they're on the winning or losing side, they maintain their equanimity. And I think people have a lot more respect for them than the ones who get overly confident when they win or overly depressed when they lose or angry or something like that.
How long a day do you meditate?
In terms of my formal meditation, which is meditation on the Hare Krishna mantra, I do that about 2 hours a day. But
wow, that's great.
I try to be meditating all day long in the sense that in the system of yoga that I practice, your work becomes part of your yoga, your meditation. If it's done in devotion for a spiritual purpose, then your writing, your music, your art, your whatever it is you do can become a meditation, a yoga. That's how I try to keep my mental state.
That's great. I would imagine that's a huge support to your mission and your calling.
Yes, it does. It gives a lot of inner satisfaction. It also gives me a long-term perspective and helps me relate to other people.
I'm so delighted and so appreciative of what you're doing. And I know that there will be a time, as you stay healthy, and we both stay healthy, perhaps in the next 25 years, the world will get it, or before.
I think things are definitely moving in that direction. Most people already accept the kinds of things I'm talking about, and there are even many scientists who do, although sometimes they have to keep quiet about it. So I don't think that the current group that's now dominating the education systems and the government is going to be able to do that for too much longer. It's just not a very stable situation for them.
I have one last question for you, and it really surprised me in the book, The Forbidden Archaeologist. It was like a sentence or two. You said that Jesus was in Glastonbury with Mary Magdalene and that he studied Druidic mysteries. How did you know that, and where did you find that?
Well, I was reporting what I heard from the people in Glastonbury. It's not necessarily that I accept that myself, but
okay.
I was in Glastonbury to speak at a crop circle conference, and I was listening to the people there who were knowledgeable about the place, and they were explaining its significance to me in terms of the ideas that they had about Christ. Of course, there are a lot of different areas where there's hidden histories. I mean, I've tended to focus on the archaeological evidence for extreme human antiquity, and there are other researchers in the alternative history field who've gotten into the Grail mysteries and the Jesus mysteries and things like that. It's not my main field.
Right, okay. But I just wanted to ask you about that. I just thought
Yeah,
that would be
something
neat
that
to
I'm
talk to them.